Hey guys, Stephanie with AmericanMuscle.com here with these Eibach Pro-Damper Shocks and Struts for 79 to 04 V8s, minus the 99 to 04 Cobras, and the 94 to 04 V6 Mustangs. And we're going to go over the benefits that these offer, how much they cost, and what things are looking like install-wise. And I can tell you right now that I'm going to rate these as a 2 out of 3 wrenches in the difficulty meter. The Pro-Damper Shocks and Struts are going to be a good option for anyone looking for a set of shocks and struts to work with a set of Eibach's lowering springs and sway bars. When you start doing handling upgrades, you want to make sure that all of the components are going to work together, and shocks and struts are going to work very closely with the lowering springs. There are a few different shock and strut kits on the site, but usually you want to make sure that your setup is designed for the performance that you want, so while these will work with other lowering springs, they'll work best with Eibach components. Across the board, I'd say that the factory suspension is set up more for having a comfortable ride quality and being easy to drive than anything else. Now that means that there's a lot of room for improvement in the minds of some. If you have a performance-based mind, you probably want something more than comfortable. You're going to want effective, which leads you to upgrades like lowering springs. Where you can run into issues is if you leave a component out, and if you upgrade lowering springs, you really need to also look into new shocks and struts that are designed to work with lowering springs like these Pro-Dampers are. If you don't, you're going to be missing out on the full effectiveness of the springs and on some ride quality. Now, a lot of times you can get away with running your stock components if they're not already blown or they don't have high miles on them, at least for a little while anyway. You're not going to be damaging anything per se, maybe not getting the best results, but you're not ruining anything besides the shocks and struts themselves. You'll be shortening their lives. What it comes down to is the fact that the internals are not set up to take the abuse of the lowered ride height. These, however, are. They're made to take full advantage of the increased spring rate and the Eibach aftermarket springs and the lower center of gravity that the springs will create. These are tuned, which means the dampening characteristics have been changed to work with lowering springs and so that they can be a high-performance shock and strut without having to be overly harsh. Taking a step back for a second, usually in order to get better suspension performance, you need to take away some ride quality. You need to make things stiffer so they perform better, which means no more flexible components like soft rubber bushings or components that allow for twisting. Taking away too much comfort, however, leads to a large amount of NVH and a harsh and uncomfortable ride. The goal tends to be finding the middle, where you have parts that will perform but won't give you too much of an uncomfortable ride quality, and that's where Eibach places these shocks and struts when paired with their lowering springs and their sway bars. They're made to give you the best of both worlds between comfortable and functional. When it comes to price, you can expect to spend just over $400 for this set. This is pretty much right in the middle of the road for price. You can find a set that costs a little bit less and a little bit more, and you can purchase individual pieces if you want to as well. But I will say that these are specifically designed and tuned to work with the spring rates of Eibach's lowering springs, so you're gonna get the best results from these suspension upgrades if you pair them correctly. So the install here is a lot of work, but I wouldn't say that it's difficult to install. It's all straightforward and you won't need any tools out of the ordinary besides a spring compressor for your springs. These do fit a wide range of Mustangs, but the install will be nearly the same. You need an assortment of different sockets and wrenches, and if you decide to tackle this yourself, you can expect to spend about 2 hours. Wrapping things up here, the Eibach Pro-Damper Shocks and Struts are specifically designed to work with Eibach's lowering springs and sway bars to make for a nice handling package. These shocks and struts are precision tuned to be effective without providing a harsh ride quality, and as always, I suggest you check this kit out more online for yourself. And for all things Mustang, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.